Welcome to the long-awaited Jaime Lannister live stream. Oh yes, we're going to talk about the life and times of the ultimate gray character, the Golden Boy, Jaime Lannister. To me, he is right on that perfect threshold of gray characterness. And so exciting is Jaime that I couldn't talk about him just by myself. So we have this special Friday live stream to match with the schedule of the beloved Alisa Patience. Everyone, welcome Alisa Patience. Hello.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be back, and I am sober this time.
Just always a good way to make an entrance to a podcast or a live stream. I'm sober this time, guys.
Don't worry. I'm not going to be making weird statements like, I think someone pointed out that I said that the Targaryens founded the Iron Bank. They did not. I don't know why I said that. It was a night.
When Alisa was in her cups, and Alisa was in her cups most every night, she loved to boast about how the Targaryens had founded things they had never founded, such as the Iron Bank.
Targaryen madness is Maester propaganda. Anyways, hi, everybody. Hi, Carl.
Well, that is true. That is true. All right. So, folks, as is custom, we are going to start with a nice, healthy quote reading. But before we do, I will just quickly remind you of a couple of things you can do to support the program, such as using the PayPal Mythical Astronomy link, which is right below and in the description. You can also send a super chat via the YouTube function. You can sign up for Patreon, or you can even buy a Mythical Astronomy t-shirt. That link is also below the video. And if you really would like to support me and what I'm doing here, then you can check out my book that I'm writing, Paradise Gained. Right now, it's just a mailing list on Indiegogo. So all I'm asking for is your email address, but I'm writing fast. I'm about halfway done and doing tons of great research. I'm going to update you guys on some of the stuff I've learned on Sunday. We're going to do a real world mythology live stream on Sunday. But that being said, oh, and of course, Alisa Patience has a YouTube channel, which you guys should absolutely check out. While I pull this quote up, give me like 2 minutes on your fairy tale angle on Song of Ice and Fire. Tell people why they should be interested in that.
So George is inspired by a lot of classic literature. And as fantasy, he takes a lot from fairy tales. And I've always been obsessed with fairy tales and Disney movies and folklore and Greek mythology. And I'm getting into Norse mythology now. And it's impossible upon my second read of A Song of Ice and Fire, it's impossible not to notice all of the parallels. And I didn't see anything about it on YouTube, so I decided to talk about it on YouTube myself. I've done Cinderella, I've done Daenerys, Jon, Cersei, Arya, Sansa, and I just did part 1 of Brienne, and I'm working on part 2 and her dynamic with Jaime. I can't promise when that'll be out. I thought it was going to be out last week. It was not, and I'm sorry.
So the timing couldn't be better, in essence. This is the stuff that you've been chewing on and marinating on lately, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I got excited. I was like, ooh, I've been thinking about this. That's also why I have Storm on the brain.
I was thinking in the back of my head that you were a big fan of this general dynamic, and because the Jaime Brienne thing is so laced with fairy tale tropes and things like that, I figured you would be enthusiastic about it, and you were. So
yeah,
there we go. So check it out. It's just search Alisa Patience into the YouTube search box, and you will find her channel. So check that out.
It's just my mic is low. I don't know how to fix that.
No, Mike, not physically low. The volume.
No, but, yeah, I know. I was trying to turn up my because I'm using my phone. It's a whole thing.
Well, you know what I'll do is I'll turn myself down a little bit. And then we'll be more even, and everyone can turn their volume up. How's that? Am I more even with Alisa now, guys?
Testing.
Talk a little bit.
Say stuff now so that they can decide if we're even. Smitty, I am eating popcorn.
Smitty says he's a little high right now, which is acceptable. Praise Garth.
Not Utah, but
it says go lower. Let me go ahead and go lower now. Oh, sorry. All right. So it says that's better. Okay, we'll have to settle for better. So
sounds good to me. Okay, cool.
Herod Hall's bathhouse was. Oh wait, no, that's not what they meant. Me. And yes, we're starting with the bathhouse scene. It is the most insightful Jaime passage, or at least one of them. So I like this one. Harrenhal's bathhouse was a dim, steamy, low-ceilinged room filled with some great stone tubs. When they led Jaime in, they found Brienne seated in one of them, scrubbing her arm almost angrily. "Not so hard, wench," she called. "You'll scrub the skin off." She dropped her brush and covered her teats with her hands as big as Gregor Clegane's. The pointy little buds she was so intent on hiding would have looked more natural on some 10-year-old than they did on her thick, muscular chest. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "Lord Bolton insists I sup with him, but he neglected to invite my fleas." Jaime tugged at his guard with his left hand. "Help me out of these stinking rags." One-handed, he could not so much as unlace his breeches. The man obeyed grudgingly, but he obeyed. "Now leave us," Jaime said when his clothes lay in a pile on the wet stone floor. "My Lady of Tarth doesn't want the likes of you scum gaping at her teats." He pointed his stump. Hang on a second. Let me resize this. And you'll have to excuse Jaime's sexism and objectification. Obviously, that's part of Jaime's character. So, needless to say, he pointed his stump at the hatchet-faced woman attending Brienne. "You two, wait without. There's only the one door, and the wench is too big to try and shimmy up a chimney." The habit of obedience went deep. The woman followed his guard out, leaving the bathhouse to the two of them. The tubs were large enough to hold 6 or 7 after the fashion of the free cities, so Jaime climbed in with the wench, awkward and slow. Both his eyes were open, though the right remained somewhat swollen, despite Qyburn's leeches. Jaime felt 109 years old, which was a deal better than he had been feeling when he came to Harrenhal. Brienne shrunk away from him. "There are other tubs. This one suits me well enough." Oh, Alisa, will you go ahead and mute yourself while I do this?
Sorry.
Or do you need me to do that? Okay, you're good. All right. Let's see here. It's going to be a good 5-7 minutes or so. "So have no fear, wench. Your thighs are purple and green. I'm not interested in what you've got between them." Liar. He had to rest his right arm on the rim since Qyburn had warned him to keep the linen dry. He could feel the tension drain from his legs, but his head spun. "If I faint, pull me out. No Lannister has ever drowned in his bath, and I don't mean to be the first." "Why should I care how you die?" "You swore a solemn vow." He smiled as a red flush crept up the thick white column of her neck. She turned her back to him. "Still the shy maiden? What is it that you think I haven't seen?" He groped for the brush she had dropped, caught it with his fingers, and began to scrub himself desultorily. That's not a word I will ever use. Even that was difficult and awkward. "My left hand is good for nothing." Still, the water darkened as the caked dirt dissolved off his skin. The wench kept her back to him, the muscles in her great shoulders hunched and hard. "Does the sight of my stump distress you?" Jaime asked. "You ought to be pleased. I've lost the hand I killed the king with, the hand that flung the Stark boy from that tower, the hand I'd slide between my sister's thighs to make her wet." He thrust his stump at her face. "No wonder Renly died with you guarding him." She jerked to her feet as if he'd struck her, sending a wash of hot water across the tub. Jaime caught a glimpse of the thick blonde bush at the junction of her thighs as she climbed out. She was much hairier than his sister. Absurdly, he felt his cock stir beneath the bathwater. "Now I know I've been too long away from Cersei." He averted his eyes, troubled by his body's response. "That was unworthy," he mumbled. "I'm a maimed man and bitter. Forgive me, wench. You protected me as well as any man could have, and better than most." She wrapped her nakedness in a towel. "Do you mock me?" That pricked him back to anger. "Are you thick as a castle wall?" And by the way, that's, of course, an excellent Dunk Brienne lineage clue there. Obviously, thick as a castle wall is what Dunk is called. "That was an apology. I'm tired of fighting with you. What say we make a truce?" "Truces are built on trust." "Would you have me trust the Kingslayer?" "Yes." "The Oathbreaker who murdered poor sad Aerys Targaryen?" Jaime snorted. "It's not Aerys I rue, it's Robert." "I hear they have named you Kingslayer," he said to me at his coronation feast. "Just don't think to make it a habit." And he laughed. "Why is it that no one names Robert Oathbreaker? He tore the realm apart, yet I am the one with shit for honor." "Robert did all he did for love." Water ran down Brienne's legs and pooled beneath her feet. Robert did all he did for pride, a cunt and a pretty face. He made a fist, or would have if he'd had a hand. Pain lanced up his arm, cruel as laughter. He rode to save the realm, she insisted. To save the realm. Did you know that my brother set the Blackwater rush afire? Wildfire will burn on water. Aerys would have bathed in it if he dared. The Targaryens were all mad for fire. Jaime felt lightheaded. It is the heat in here, the poison in my blood, the last of my fever. I am not myself. He eased himself down until the water reached his chin. Soiled my white cloak. I wore my gold armor that day, but... Gold armor? Her voice sounded far off, faint. He floated in heat, in memory. After Dancing Griffins lost the Battle of the Bells, Aerys exiled him. Why am I telling this absurd, ugly child? He had finally realized that Robert was no mere outlaw lord to be crushed at whim, but the greatest threat House Targaryen had faced since Daemon Blackfyre. The king reminded Lewin Martell gracelessly that he held Elia and sent him to take command of the 10,000 Dornishmen coming up the King's Road. Jon Darrion, Barristan Selmy rode to Stony Sept to rally what they could of Griffin's men, and Prince Rhaegar returned from the south and persuaded his father to swallow his pride and summoned my father. But no raven returned from Casterly Rock, and that made the king even more afraid. He saw traitors everywhere, and Varys was always there to point out any he might have missed. So his grace commanded his alchemists to place caches of wildfire all over King's Landing, beneath Baelor's Sept and the hovels of Flea Bottom, under stables and storehouses, at all 7 gates, even in the cellars of the Red Keep itself. Everything was done in the utmost secrecy by a handful of master pyromancers. They did not even trust their own acolytes to help. The queen's eyes had been closed for years, and Rhaegar was busy marshalling an army. But Aerys knew Mason Daggerhand that was not utterly stupid, and with Rossert, Bellis, and Gargius coming and going night and day, he became suspicious. Chelstead, that was his name, Lord Chelstead. It had come back to him suddenly with the telling. I'd thought the man craven, but the day he confronted Aerys, he found some courage somewhere. He did all he could to dissuade him. He reasoned, he jested, he threatened, and finally he begged. When that failed, he took off his chain of office and flung it down on the floor. Aerys burnt him alive for that, and hung his chain about the neck of Rossart, his favorite pyromancer, the man who had cooked Lord Rickard Stark in his own armor. And all the time, I stood by the foot of the Iron Throne in my white plate, still as a corpse, guarding my liege and all his sweet secrets. My sworn brothers were all away, you see, but Aerys liked to keep me close. I was my father's son, so he did not trust me. He wanted me where Varys could watch me day and night. So I heard it all. He remembered how Rossart's eye would shine when he unrolled his maps to show where the substance must be placed. Garrigus and Bellis were the same. Rhaegar met Robert on the Trident, and you know what happened there. When the word reached court, Aerys packed the queen off to Dragonstone with Prince Viserys. Princess Elia would have gone as well, but he forbade it. Somehow he had gotten it in his head that Prince Lewin must have betrayed Rhaegar on the Trident, but he thought he could keep Dorne loyal so long as he kept Elia and Aegon by his side. The traitors want my city, I heard him tell Rossart, but I'll give them naught but ashes. Let Robert be king over charred bones and cooked meat. The Targaryens never bury their dead. They burn them. Aerys meant to have the greatest funeral pyre of them all. Though if truth be told, I do not believe he truly expected to die. Like Aerion Brightfire before him, Aerys thought the fire would transform him, that he would rise again, reborn as a dragon, and turn all his enemies to ash. Ned Stark was racing south with Robert's van, but my father's forces reached the city first. Pycelle convinced the king that his Warden of the West had come to defend him, so he opened the gates. The one time he should have heeded Varys, and he ignored him. My father held back from the war, brooding on all that the wrongs Aerys had done him, and determined that House Lannister should be on the winning side. The Trident decided him. It fell to me to hold the Red Keep, but I knew we were lost. I sent to Aerys, asking his leave to make terms. My man came back with a royal command. Bring me your father's head if you are no traitor. Aerys would have no yielding. Lord Rossart was with him, my messenger said. I knew what that meant. When I came on Rossart, he was dressed as a common man-at-arms, hurrying to a postern gate. I slew him first. Then I slew Aerys, before we could find someone else to carry his message to the pyromancers. Days later, I hunted down the others and slew them as well. Belus offered me gold, and Garrigus wept for mercy. Well, a sword's more merciful than fire, but I don't think Garrigus much appreciated the kindness I showed him. The water had grown cool. When Jaime opened his eyes, he found himself staring at the stump of his sword hand, the hand that made me Kingslayer. The goat had robbed him of his glory and his shame, both at once. Leaving what? Who am I now? The wench looked ridiculous, clutching her towel to her meager teats with her thick white legs sticking out beneath. Has my tale turned you speechless? Come, curse me or kiss me or call me a liar. Something. If this is true, how is it that no one knows? The knights of the Kingsguard are sworn to keep the king's secrets. Would you have me break my oath? Jaime laughed. Do you think the noble lord of Winterfell wanted to hear my feeble explanations? Such an honorable man. He had only to look at me to judge me guilty. Jaime lurched to his feet, the water running cold down his chest. By what right does the wolf judge the lion? By what right? A violent shiver took him, and he smashed his stump against the rim of the tub as he tried to climb out. Pain shuddered through him, and suddenly the bathhouse was spinning. Brienne caught him before he could fall. Her arm was all goose flesh, clammy and chilled, but she was strong and gentler than he would have thought. Gentler than Cersei, he thought, as she helped him from the tub, his legs wobbly as a limp cock. Guards, she heard the wench shout. The Kingslayer. Jaime, he thought. My name is Jaime. So, there we go. Come back to us, Ellie. There you go. How was that?
Yeah. Amazing. I just want to point out that for all the faults that the show had, this scene was pulled pretty much directly, like word for word from the books, and I think it was perfect. Even though I read the books after, I wasn't disappointed. It was amazing. Anyways.
Alisa, what do you think? Should I allow people to taunt me via super chat with N+A=J and LML=SJW? What do you think? Is this good-natured teasing or is this trolling?
Okay. Wait, did I don't know how to change names finally change names?
Is that you? I don't know. That's he's riding that gray character cusp of troll or good-natured trolling perfectly. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say this is good-natured.
Yeah, if they give you money, it's good natures. Okay, yeah, fine. You can give
we'll let it slide.
Your N+A=J if you do it with the super chat, I guess. But
I think the N+A=J is the signal for a good-natured trolling. I think that's in the spirit of things around here. So thank you for the super chat. And I did get one earlier from Sword of the Morning, $4.99. If only one could be, do you think it would be cooler for Jaime or Tyrion to be the undercover Targ?
Tyrion.
Tyrion. I got to go with Tyrion. He's much closer to the dragons. I think the timeline evidence supports at least that possibility, where it kind of seems like World of Ice and Fire is casting shade on the Jaime Cersei Targaryen echo, but
yeah, I think
or not echo, the bloodline rather. Oh, what's that? Is there the peanut gallery is stirring. I hear a voice from the hallway. I don't know. I told Quinn he's welcome to jump in if he wants to, so he may run in at some point.
Did Quinn just say that Jaime's the better Lannister? Also, undercover is
we were talking about Targaryen bloodline possibilities, Quinn.
Because undercover implies that they know that they're Targaryen, which obviously they wouldn't. It's not Jaime, even though I think the parallels are there and they're supposed to be there and we're supposed to think about it. I think the more is we're supposed to notice how different Cersei and Jaime are, instead of their secret targets. Whereas Tyrion, there's no reason for all that evidence to be there unless it's true. In my opinion, that's just me though.
Yeah, and I think that there's a very intentional literary parallel between Cersei and the Mad King. There's no doubt about that. I just don't think that necessitates or means that Cersei and or Jaime is actually Targaryen. But I understand why people like the theory, because there's no doubt that both of their sort of very vain incest, it's very Targaryen-like, as well as the Cersei Mad King parallels are very clear. So I totally get that. in the end, they're probably all Lannisters. I also like the Tyrion Chimera theory, where he's like half Ares and half Tywin genetically, because he's got the mismatched eyes and the weird hair and stuff. It is a real thing that happens, and the Chimera obviously is also used for symbolism. So I dig that theory, even though it's a little bit tinfoily, but there you go. That's my take on all that.
Yeah, I mean, I fully believe that Tyrion is a secret Targ. If he's not, I'm going to be really embarrassed. But
and of course, I do have an older video called Tyrion Targaryen. If you want to see my collection of the evidence for that, there, he has dragon dreams and is kind of obsessed with dragons. There's some clues like that are lurking about.
Yeah, either way, it makes sense though. So like, no character is going to be ruined, no matter what the result is.
So let's talk about this passage that I just read. Alisa, what are you holding? Is that a sword?
Yeah. So I'm wearing Targ colors because like I always got to represent my house. But just to be on brand or on theme for the day, this is my first sword. It's Sting from The Hobbit. But if I hold it like this, you can't tell it's Sting. It just looks like a cool golden sword, huh?
Well, this is where I one up you and bring out Foam Keeper, which is, of course,
Keeper?
Well, Foam Keeper. Yes, it's Foam Oath Keeper, and then I've dyed it red and black to be book authentic. So it is now a more accurate Foam Keeper, although the paint has obviously degraded a little bit. However, it happens when you kill people. So
I was gonna say, well, if yours is foam, then maybe you didn't one up me. Maybe we're equal because this is steel.
Yes, in terms of who has a better weapon for combat, you would triumph. I've got the reach, but yours is made of metal, so there is that. And
I got to be faster because it's so short.
True. You can do that thing where you go, and then my neck just like.
Don't worry, we'll never come to blows.
Totally. Yes, I will give you lots of red marks though as I whap you with Foam Keeper. So there's that. All right. So so the quote we just read, obviously, this is the turning point for Jaime's character. Up to at least in the minds of the reader. Up to this point, we have seen mostly the bad and / arrogant side of Jaime. We've seen him from the outside. Storm of Swords. All of Jaime's chapters are interesting, and we're gonna get into some other quotes from Storm. But this one is where you as the reader, you're kind of doing the same thing that Brienne does. You're just like, oh shit, what now? How come nobody knows about this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because for us, because we know Jaime's story, or because we start to like Jaime, we forget that not everybody knows about this. Cersei probably doesn't even know about it. So it's easy to forget that why all of Westeros hates Jaime. They don't know that Aerys was gonna kill everybody. They think Jaime was just like, fuck this, I'm gonna take some glory for myself. But that's not at all what happened. And I think,
let me ask you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I was going to ask you a question. Why the first thing when you find about this is kind of that question of like, why didn't you tell anybody that what you did was more noble than what it appeared to be? Has something to do with Jaime's arrogance, but what do you think about that?
I think, part of it might be because of his arrogance and he doesn't want people to know he has feelings. But I think part of it is the first person who would have called Jaime Kingslayer was Ned. Like the first person who would have told everybody that Jaime dishonored the King's Guard and his king, and he's a traitor and a turncloak and a Kingslayer. Ned would have been the first one, or if not one of the first ones, to talk about it and spread that around. And Jaime really admires people like Ned who are honorable and well known for that and for their martial prowess. So when Ned instantly judged him, I'm sure Jaime did try and defend himself, say, hey, I killed this guy that you yourself were coming here to kill. I killed the guy who killed your father and brother. I did a good thing. You shouldn't be mad at me. I think when Ned hears that, but disregards it because just of the nature of the situation, I think that made Jaime basically think it would be pointless to try to explain himself to anyone else. And like most people wouldn't care. Like Robert didn't care. Robert pardoned him and made him, part of the King's Guard. So like only people like Ned really would have cared in a negative way. Tywin was probably like, yeah, good job. Thanks.
So that's a good point. He may have taken Ned's judgment as a proxy for how other people would consider it. And when we hear Ned tell Robert about Jaime sitting on the throne, like Ned makes like a silly big ass deal of it, like it's this horrible thing, and Robert's like kind of sees it honestly the right way. He's like, he's a kid, he's like 17, and you're kind of like, when you do something that crazy, you're kind of put yourself in shock. You know what I mean? Like Jaime just murdered the king. He also just saved King's Landing. The entire monarchy is about to crumble and change hands. He may have saved his father's life, maybe, or his own life. And then Ned wants to judge him for like sitting on the throne. It's kind of silly, to be honest, but that's kind of Ned's stiff sense of honor, right? Or whatever.
It is silly, but also, I mean, Jaime didn't even consider himself to be the new king or whatever. He just kind of sat down. I don't think he was even thinking about it, but
it's kind of like saying he's proud of what he did, right? Like, I killed the king and I'm proud of it, and I'm going to sit in the throne with my bloody sword. And, but I think he's really just sort of owning what he did.
Yeah. And I think it's silly that Ned doesn't realize that if you kill a king, you technically have the right to sit in their throne because you killed them. So you technically took the throne by conquest. So, I mean, I think it says more about Jaime that he didn't decide to be the new king. He was like, oh no, this is for Robert or Tywin or whatever, not for me. I think that says more about his character than him sitting down in it in the first place.
Yeah, and Jean-Luc Picard has a good, Captain Jean-Luc has a good 2 cents here. He puts in, he says, I think it's repentance because he took his oaths seriously and broke his oaths to serve a higher cause. So I think it's shame, but he tries to cover it by flexing on the arrogance. So that's not exactly repentance. It's almost like trying to restore his honor. He's like, well, I broke this one law because I had a good reason, but now I'm going to sort of stubbornly and artificially cling to the other Kingsguard rules as a way of, that kind of makes sense. And then my super chat troll followed up and says, good on you. 'Twas but a good natured jab. I feel like there's no need to apologize for sexism in a medieval society and apologize for fictional characters. I'm not so much apologizing for Jaime. It's more like starting the program, reading a quote with so much kind of like aggressive sexism. It's just my way of being polite and saying, hey guys, sorry to throw this at you at the beginning, but I mean, it is what it is. When you write characters like that, you're like, there's a point. The characters that are written to be chauvinistic in A Song of Ice and Fire, like George is doing it intentionally, right? It doesn't make us think that George is a chauvinist. But at the same time, like I said, just throwing it at everybody at first, I think it's okay to smooth it out there. But at the same time, I am an SJW. I'm definitely liberal and stuff like that. So you'd probably call me an SJW for half the things I tweet about anyway. But it's all love. It's all good. Thanks for the super chat. And there you go.
Also, I think it's more apologizing for if you're listening to this not with headphones and you're listening to it out loud and there's like maybe other people in the room. They're like, what?
I'm like, me your teats. It's like, okay, George.
Like, but I do want to comment about Jaime's misogyny and his sexist comments in that, if that's okay. He's really confused. He finds her attractive, and this is my reading of it, is that he finds her attractive, is confused about why he finds her attractive, because he's only ever loved Cersei, and Cersei is like in his head what a woman should look like. But because of Brienne's character, he feels the tension in the bathtub, and he kind of, it's a trope that I hate a lot in when like high school movies or teen movies or whatever, when there's a gay character, so he like bullies another gay character to like cover up for the fact that he's gay. I feel like Jaime's kind of like over insulting her, or like insulting her in his head, to like try and repress the fact that he is attracted to her. because he's
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, go on. I was just agreeing with you. Go ahead.
No, that's about it. But every time he has a nice thought about her, or almost every time he has a nice thought about her, he like follows it up with a mean thought, and vice versa, because he doesn't know, this is like the first time he's ever met a woman like this, and she in a way is everything he wants to be as far as a knight goes. So I think it's really sweet. And even though it's like really cringy to read and you're like, oh, Jaime, why are you sucking right now? I think if you think about why he's being shitty, it makes you feel a little more warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I think that is a large part of the sexual commentary that's running in Jaime's inner monologue. He is obviously looking, he's looking and commenting and noticing, but it doesn't. He's had his brain ruined by patriarchy, if you will, by gender norms, and he's attracted. He's attracted, right? Exactly, by Cersei, the epitome of feminine
misogyny.
Internalized misogyny and all that stuff. You could see it reflecting on both of them, but so Jaime is attracted to this person that isn't who he's supposed to be attracted to, and yeah, you're absolutely right. He's fighting with it. He's in denial, and so he's insulting her both verbally and in his monologue, but it's very clear that he's looking. So
yeah,
it's pretty well written.
Yeah, isn't it implied that he like? Never mind. That's never mind. Isn't it implied in though a little awkward, but like that he like is turned on? Like, isn't that kind of in the past?
Oh yeah, no. George gives us that to as the giveaway. Yeah, but even his own reaction, he's like, this is weird. Why is this happening? It's like, well, Jaime, why do you think it's happening? And of course, and what's even sweeter is that Jaime's attraction to Brienne, a lot of it is rooted in actual respect, because they've been traveling enough to where he sees her character. She's upholding the knightly virtues better than most knights. So he respects her for that, as well as her raw combat prowess. And honestly, like, both of them are judged unfairly by the rest of the world. So they do have some common, even though it's different, they have some common ground emotionally speaking. So there's a lot of reasons why he's come to respect and be attracted to her. I'm seeing golden masked comments. That's got to go up.
Oh God, I was like, oh God, no.
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna be that kind of day. Girl Nettles is in here causing trouble. Everyone's here causing trouble. I see what's going on here.
It's a sexy chap. It's hard not to. Their chemistry and like the way they think about each other. It's really hard not to like think about that. Yeah, like
I was gonna say
thing she could have done which she did. The hottest thing she could have done was take out a whole boat by herself in Jaime's first chapter. Like, it's very hot for him.
Yeah, it's that is an awesome chapter, and I'm planning on reading some long passages from that first Jaime Storm chapter. Absolutely. Let me ask you this: Brienne the Beauty. Okay. Obviously, viewers of my program are familiar with Venus symbolism in general. Morning star, even star, Lightbringer. The planet Venus switches from rising in the morning to setting in the evening. Associated with all the Lightbringer and Sword of the Morning ideas are associated with Venus, but of course Venus is also the goddess of love and beauty, Aphrodite, all that stuff. So give a little bit about how Brienne is in fact the beauty and might be the more beautiful woman to cast Cersei down too. Not for sure, but could be. So take that any way you want. I know you've got thoughts.
Sorry, someone said Brienne the booty. Isabel Lamico. Sorry.
We know it's toned, at least, if nothing. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, she's fit. She's been exercising. So, and she's more gentle with him even than Cersei is, and that's because Cersei's not gentle with anyone. Anyways, but Jaime wouldn't know that, would he? Because he has nothing to compare it to. So I think it's interesting. Yeah, I'm very familiar.
And talk about the Beauty and the Beast reversal too, because I know you're on top of that. That's probably a good entrance into it.
Okay, so yes, there is that, and I do mention it because yeah, Beauty and the Beast, Brienne's like the Beast and Jaime's the Beauty, except they're kind of reversed on the inside. And then Cersei's like Gaston. But
I'm especially good at expectorating.
She's especially good at exploding, committing
yes.
arsonating.
I do have some Septive Baylor explosion foreshadowing that I found in a quote we're going to read, but I carry on.
Oh, okay, cool. So Jaime and Brienne, where are they at? Oh yeah, someone pointed out the Jaime and Lancelot parallel, and yep, that's it. That's in my opinion, that's Jaime's fairy tale parallel. It's Lancelot. He's in servitude of the king, but he's got a thing for the queen, and it's forbidden. And the Tony goes to LML. Oh, for
yes,
okay,
yeah. Somebody named James Dahl just gave me that Tony. That's very meaningful. But carry on.
I'll have to think back on it because I was gonna say something very relevant. But
we were talking about Beauty and the Beast, Cersei's Gaston, Cersei's being the beauty that might cast Cersei down, the younger, more beautiful. I guess she'd have to be a queen for that to work, huh?
I mean, if yeah, and some people are like, yeah, Jaime for the Iron Throne, and if it would never happen, but if Jaime and Brienne did get married and he did end up on the Iron Throne, then she would be a beautiful queen. But also, like, words, I guess Maggie the Frog's prophecy is pretty straightforward, huh? There's not really, I mean, in most prophecies, there's like double meaning with words, like king or queen or whatever. Like, it can just mean like a person of power. But I think maybe in Maggie the Frog's prophecy specifically, it is very literally a queen.
Now, if the Seven Kingdoms is dissolved to some extent and Tarth is independent, then she would be a queen, technically.
Yeah.
But of course, just to fill in on some of the astronomy, Tarth. Oh, go ahead. Did you remember what you're going to say?
Yep. Astronomy. I'm familiar with your Venus stuff. It's like a lot of your A Song of Ice and Fire mythos.
Here you go. Ariadne's got it. So if she's the Venus symbolism will make her the goddess of love and beauty, which is a title that gets translated into Queen of Love and Beauty in the story, right?
Yeah, that works too. I have in my notes for my Brienne stuff that instead of Venus, she's more of Artemis, like a powerful virginal woman. And there's this myth where she is bathing in a river, and a man comes across her and is staring at her. So
you're totally right.
Yeah, and so in the myth, she splashes water on him and turns him into a stag that his own dogs go off and chase and eat. So, and that doesn't really work 1-to-1, but I don't know. It was there. Brienne really makes me think of Artemis. I can see the Venus thing too, and I think her name Brienne the Beauty does lend as evidence to that.
Well, George never does just one influence, so I mean, there's no conflict at all whatsoever. It makes a lot of sense, honestly, what you're talking about.
Yeah, like Jaime is the Beauty and Beauty and the Beast. Jaime's also Cersei's magic mirror, and Gray Area had a thought that Jaime and Cersei were could be Hansel and Gretel, and I thought that was really interesting, and I might get into that a little more.
Carl Karsnark, with the Artemis rundown, says she's the Greek goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, wild animals, the moon, and chastity, equivalent with Roman Diana. Here's the thing. Artemis is descended from Ishtar, just as Venus is. Artemis is a newer deity, and Ishtar Inanna is one of the oldest Mesopotamian deities, going all the way back to 4000 BC or older. Aphrodite, whom we think about as Venus, is really only like one half of Ishtar. She is the love and sex goddess half, but Ishtar also had a very warlike half as well, Inanna Ishtar. So later, a lot of those kind of ideas ended up being the Greek Artemis. So that's why there's not really a conflict here.
Carl Karsnark also said Artemis is it scrolled up. Artemis is the daughter of Zeus and Leto and the twin sister of Apollo. She was the patron and protector of young girls and was believed to bring disease upon women and relieve them of it. Fascinating. I think if you look at Jaime as kind of an Apollo figure, like shining this sun, handsome man, which Jaime and Brienne aren't twins, but I think it's interesting when you compare his actual twin to the woman he's been spending all this time with. When you compare Cersei and Brienne, it's a little weird. They're almost inverses of each other.
They are. Yeah. And even without going into mythology, we can see that Cersei is showing us outer beauty with inner just awfulness and ugliness. Whereas, Brienne is conventionally not attractive, let's say, but obviously has the inner beauty. So they're definitely meant to be contrasted with each other. And this is how good Martin is at using characters to bounce off each other. So we have these Cersei Brienne parallels. Cersei and Dany have a lot of parallels with how they're both given power in the same books, and we're supposed to contrast how they rule. At the same time, Brienne's sort of knightly virtues, even though she's not a knight, is playing into this long commentary about knighthood, which involves Sir Barristan and Dunk and Jaime and the whole Kingsguard and Sandor Clegane and all that stuff. So, Brienne's an interesting character because she is the crossing over of like a couple of different thematic narratives within the book. And then, of course, in A Feast for Crows, Brienne's, sojourn on Cracklaw Point is used to show us, a lot about the Crow Feast and the fallout and the effect of the war on the commoners. So I love Brienne's chapters, both the Cracklaw chapters and the other ones. But we're talking about Brienne a lot, of course, because Jaime's character really is so tightly tied to Brienne. As soon as we get in Jaime's headspace, he's with Brienne, like you said. Mm-hmm. And so it's really like it's Cersei and Brienne essentially are the stars in his sky. And his entire plot is kind of bouncing off of those two people. And to a lesser extent, Tywin and Tyrion, but
yeah, much less extent. Like in Jaime's first chapter, almost every single thought is about Cersei. Like she's mentioned by name twice on the first page, and it's only half a page. So I think that says more about the toxicity of their relationship. Because she kind of brainwashed him, I feel like, to like only think about her.
Yes, there's a line where after Jaime buzzes his hair, he says, "Oh, I look less like Cersei now. She'll hate that." So yeah. He's well aware that like their twincest is all about narcissism and vanity.
But he doesn't think that's weird, though. He doesn't think that it should be a different way. He doesn't think, hey, she's not loving me the right way. This isn't what love actually is. He doesn't pick up on that, which
no, not at least not at first. When he comes back to King's Landing and first sees Cersei, he's basically like, let's make a new kid and be open with our incest, just like the Targaryens. Fuck it. Like that was his take at that point. But then of course she rejects him. And I've got that quote set aside too. Cool. Real quickly, Austin Flowers makes a point that Robert called Cersei by the wrong name on their wedding night, which of course we talked about in the King Robert stream and the Cersei stream. So if you want that whole discussion, that is there. Cersei is, even though she's pretty awful, she does have some sympathetic moments, and that is one of them. So yeah, there's definitely a good point there.
Sympathetic moments, but like that wasn't the start of her bitchiness. She murdered. 11.
Yeah, no, she pushed her friend down a well at age 11. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Robert isn't the cause. Like, even though Robert was a terrible husband, not the best king in my opinion either, shitty father, his behavior towards Cersei did not cause her to be the horrible person that she is.
No, certainly not. It just kind of shows you how both Robert and Cersei, like their whole marriage was doomed from the beginning for different reasons. He's still obsessed with what did Cersei say? The simpering 14-year-old or whatever it is, like however she referred to Lyanna. So the dead Stark teenager or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, I think she was like more like 16, not 14, but
I don't know. Rhaegar was in his early 20s.
Yeah, shame on you, Rhaegar. Cradle Robin. It's not cool, man.
No, don't start. I can't.
Yeah, you're right. No, we'll send the chat into a tailspin. The Rhaegar character stream will be for that. We'll duke it out on Rhaegar's character.
Can I be on that one too? Because I.
Oh sure, if you want, absolutely. You're hereby invited for the Rhaegar stream.
Obsessed with Rhaegar, so.
As are we all.
Anyways, sorry. This is not about Rhaegar though. This was about Jaime.
Oh yes, the other heartthrob of A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, the other Golden Knight, handsome man who Cersei is obsessed with.
Hey, look, if you need to go get a glass of cold water, that's fine. I can wait a minute.
No, I'm good.
So, of course, when Jon first sees Jaime at Winterfell, this is how Jaime's introduced. He was more interested in the pair that came behind him, and behind him is behind Joffrey. The Queen's brothers, the Lannisters of Casterly Rock, the Lion and the Imp. There was no mistaking which was which. Sir Jaime Lannister was twin to Queen Cersei, tall and golden, with flashing green eyes and a smile that cut like a knife. He wore crimson silk, high black boots, a black satin cloak. On the breast of his tunic, the lion of his house was embroidered in gold thread, roaring its defiance. They called him the Lion of Lannister to his face and whispered Kingslayer behind his back. Jon found it hard to look away from him. This is what a king should look like, he thought to himself as the man passed.
Don't we all find it hard to look away? Also, I love George and I love Jon, but that's a stupid sentence. It was easy to tell which was which. Like, yeah, I'm sorry. That felt like it did not need to be there.
A Game of Thrones is the one book in A Song of Ice and Fire where you can still find some of those sentences that are just a little bit amateurish or whatever. George has mostly scrubbed that out of his writing style by this time, and by Clash, it's basically gone. But there are a few of those kind of campy, slightly obvious sentences in Game of Thrones. There's a couple.
Yeah, I have no room to talk. I just couldn't help but like chuckle at that sentence, especially because Tyrion knows too. It's like, yes, let's just keep hammering home how easily it is to tell apart Jaime and Tyrion, and that'll make Tyrion feel way better. It won't. Anyways.
And George has talked about how his writing about Tyrion is a little bit uneven in the first book, when he's just sort of still starting to feel it out a little bit. So I think he does a backflip and a somersault, and then later he's more like crippled and isn't agile or whatever. So
yeah, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that that's like one thing that George would like completely take out if he could. I don't know how true.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, he did. He said he would take that out, the whole tumbling and cartwheeling stuff, but whatever. So
anyways.
All right, so here's a good one. This will definitely be something good to talk about. This is Catelyn coming to Jaime in the dungeons of Riverrun. This is another one of those conversations that's really peeling back the curtain and giving the reader an insight into things that they had only heard about up till now. Oh, is this? This might be book. This should be Clash. It should be in Clash.
While you're looking, can I just say something, make a comment on a comment?
Yes, save me. Save my dead airtime. Absolutely.
Danger Man 1337. I bet Cersei would have fiddled with Jaime even if she was married to Rhaegar. I don't think so. Maybe eventually, like if she gets bored of being queen, but like I don't think so. I think if she has Rhaegar, then she has everything that she wanted to get out of Jaime, basically, because like she's married to not just any king, not just Robert, not just a king. She's married to the king that she always wanted to marry, and I think Jaime was kind of in a way like her backup that like she's always had, because Jaime is discount Rhaegar. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Carl.
So I'm interested in that take. I kind of think she still would have messed around with Jaime, not in the way that they did with Robert, where she has 3 kids by Jaime and does this whole cuckolding thing. I don't think she would have done that to Rhaegar. But I don't know if she might have still been messing around. I mean, she's someone that thinks she can have her way kind of whenever she wants. So
she also wouldn't have been able to hide it from Rhaegar, because Rhaegar, in my opinion, is much more aware than Robert, but whatever.
Yeah, and then there's also how would Jaime feel about it, too. But all right, so
sorry, I just saw Talk Studios. It just came up on the other screen.
Yeah, Talk Studios is great. They have a YouTube channel too, by the way. If you like, talk about pot. So check that out. And yeah, he's always dropping good comments in the chat. So here is Catelyn. This is a Catelyn chapter. Catelyn shouldered aside the heavy wooden iron door and stepped into the foul darkness. This was the bowels of Riverrun and smelled the part. Old straw crackled underfoot. The walls were discolored with patches of niter. Actually, would you mute yourself for me real quick, Alisa? Thank you. Through the stone, she could hear the faint rush of the tumblestone. The lamplight revealed a pail overflowing with feces in one corner and a huddled shape in another. The flagon of wine stood beside the door, untouched. So much for that ploy. I ought to be thankful that the jailer did not drink it himself, I suppose. Jaime raised his hands to cover his face, and the chains around his wrists were clanking. Lady Stark, he said, in a voice hoarse with disuse, I fear I am in no condition to receive you. Look at me, sir. The light hurts my eyes. A moment, if you would. Jaime Lannister had been allowed no razor since the night he was taken in the Whispering Wood, and a shaggy beard covered his face, once so like the Queen's. Glinting gold in the lamplight, the whiskers made him look like some great yellow beast. And there's your beast reference, by the way, Beauty and the Beast. Jaime is the beast. Let's see here. Where was magnificent? Oh, it does say magnificent, even in chains. So that's a nice line. His unwashed hair fell to his shoulders in ropes and tangles. The clothes were rotting on his body. His face was pale and wasted. And even so, the power and the beauty of the man were still apparent. I see you had no taste for the wine I sent you. Such sudden generosity seemed somewhat suspect. I can have your head off any time I want. Why would I need to poison you? Death by poison can seem natural. Harder to claim that my head simply fell off. He squinted up from the floor, his cat-green eyes slowly becoming accustomed to the light. I'd invite you to sit, but your brother has neglected to provide me a chair. I can stand well enough. Can you? You look terrible, I must say. Though perhaps it's just the light in here. He was fettered at wrist and ankle, each cuff chained to the other, so he could neither stand nor lie comfortably. The ankle chains were bolted to the wall. Are my bracelets heavy enough for you, or did you come to add a few more? I'll rattle them prettily if you like. You brought this on yourself, she reminded him. We granted you the comfort of a tower cell befitting your birth and station. You repaid us by trying to escape. A cell is a cell. Some under Casterly Rock make this one seem a sunlit garden. One day perhaps I'll show them to you. If he is cowed, he hides it well, Catelyn thought. A man chained hand and foot should keep a more courteous tongue in his mouth, sir. I did not come here to be threatened. No? Then surely it was to have your pleasure of me. It's said that widows grow weary of their empty beds. We of the Kingsguard vowed never to wed, but I suppose I could still service you if that's what you need. Pour some of that wine and slip out of that gown, and we'll see if I'm up to it. Catelyn stared down at him in revulsion. Was there ever a man as beautiful or as vile as this one? And by the way, Catelyn has got a little bit of the thing here where she's attracted to somebody that she doesn't want to be attracted to, and she's kind of trying to tamp it down. There's a little bit of that, isn't there? Unmute yourself, Jer. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, I had to do that. Maybe, yeah, it is. It could be a little bit of attraction. I think it's also she misses her husband and he's there and he's like in chains and he, that's kinky. But I think a lot of it is like she's just aware of how attractive he is. Like you can, a straight person, I'm assuming, can tell when someone of the same gender is attractive and not be attracted to them, I think.
Yeah, no, it just seems like it's here in the subtext in her inner monologue where she's constantly noticing and remarking on his beauty and physical state and all that. So it's very much a love-hate. She's obviously disgusted with him mostly, but it seems like there's a little inner conflict there.
Yeah, similar to Jaime, she has to like call. Adrian Martell, she had to call him, she said, was there any other man as beautiful and vile? She had to like call him vile in the same sentence as beautiful, just like Jaime has to like insult Brienne in the same sentence he compliments her.
Yeah. And Catelyn's pretty much on the money with all that. That's more or less Jaime, so, you know.
And yes, he is hiding it well. She says if he's a coward or if he's scared, he's hiding it well, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Let's see. Jaime's defensive mechanism is always to go to bravado rather than to be genuine. He also grew up with a sister, so he knows when ladies like him. Yeah, I think that's all right. So let me continue with the quote. Was there ever a man as beautiful or as vile as this one? If you said that in my son's hearing, he would kill you for it. And she's talking about Robb, obviously. Only so long as I was wearing these, Jaime Lannister rattled his chains at her. We both know the boy's afraid to face me in single combat. My son may be young, but if you take him for a fool, you are sadly mistaken. And it seems to me that you were not so quick to make challenges when you had an army at your back. Did the old kings of winter hide behind their mothers' skirts as well? I grow weary of this, sir. There are things I must know. Why should I tell you anything? To save your life. You think I feared death? That seemed to amuse him. You should. Your crimes have earned you a place of torment in the deepest of the seven hells, if the gods are just. What gods are those, Lady Catelyn? The trees your husband prayed to? How well did they serve him when my sister took his head off? Jaime gave a chuckle. If there are gods, why is the world so full of pain and injustice? Jaime asking the existential questions, right? This is a question everyone's asked. Real quick, super chat coming through. When the brother unhand meets the brotherhood unbanned, they will not make him a southern lord, but they will make his hand a sword. Oh, there's poetry happening here. Let me see. What's happening here? I'm not awake enough for this.
Okay, when the brother unhand... Okay, so that's Jaime.
Will the Brotherhood Without Banners make a weapon out of Jaime? Yes. As Quinn and I discussed in our Winds of Winter predictions video about the fall of the Freys, it does seem like the most likely thing that Stoneheart and the Brotherhood would want to do with Jaime is use him to gain entrance to River Run through some sort of trickery or something like that. So he's on the money there. All right, so back to the quote. It says, did the old kings of winter hide behind their skirts? Why should I tell you anything? You think I fear death? Blah, blah, blah. What gods? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Why is the world so full of pain and injustice? And then she says, because of men like you. And he says, famously, there are no men like me. There's only me. There is nothing but arrogance and pride and the empty courage of a madman. I am wasting my breath with this one. If there was ever a spark of honor in him, it is long dead. If you will not speak with me, so be it. Drink the wine or piss in it, sir. It makes no matter to me. Her hand was at the door pull when he said, Lady Stark. She turned, waited. Things go to rust in this damp, Jaime went on. Even a man's courtesies. Stay, and you shall have your answers, for a price. He has no shame. Captives do not set prices. Oh, you'll find mine modest enough. Your turnkey tells me nothing but vile lies, and he cannot even keep them straight. One day he says Cersei has been flayed, and the next it's my father. Answer my questions, and I'll answer yours. Truthfully? Oh, it's the truth you want. Be careful, my lady. Tyrion says that people often claim to hunger for truth, but seldom like the taste when it's served up. I'm strong enough to hear anything you care to say. As you will, then. But first, if you'd be so kind, the wine. My throat is raw. Catelyn hung the lamp from the door and moved the cup and flagon closer. Jaime sloshed the wine around his mouth before he swallowed. Sour and vile, he said, but it will do. He put his back to the wall, drew his knees up to his chest, and stared at her. Your first question, Lady Catelyn. Not knowing how long this game might continue, Catelyn wasted no time. Are you Joffrey's father? You would never ask unless you knew the answer. I want it from your own lips. He shrugged. Joffrey is mine, as are the rest of Cersei's brood, I suppose. You admit to being your sister's lover? I've always loved my sister, and you owe me 2 answers. Do all my kin still live? Sir Stafford Lannister was slain at Oxcross, I am told. Jaime was unmoved. Uncle Dolt, my sister called him. It's Cersei and Tyrion who concern me, as well as my lord father. They live, all three, but not long if the gods are good. Jaime drank some more wine. Ask your next. Catelyn wondered if he would dare answer her next question with anything but a lie. How did my son Bran come to fall? I flung him from a window. The easy way he said it took her voice away for an instant. If I had a knife, I would kill him now, she thought, until she remembered the girls. Her throat constricted as she said, You were a knight, sworn to defend the weak and innocent. He was weak enough, but perhaps not so innocent. He was spying on us. Bran would not spy. Then blame those precious gods of yours who brought the boy to our window and gave him a glimpse of something he was never meant to see. Blame the gods, she said, incredulous. Yours was the hand that threw him. You meant for him to die. And by the way, that line is probably implying Jaime's god symbolism. He is, first and foremost, Tyr, of course, the Norse god who gets his hand chopped off. And there's a lot of Bran, Jaime stuff that goes into Norse mythology, which we'll probably talk about in the next Jaime stream. I've sort of pushed the symbolism off to the next one just so we could talk about the man, Jaime Lannister, today. But blaming the gods, yours was the hand that threw him, because literally it's Jaime's hand that identifies him with Tyr. So that's why this seems like a Tyr reference here. But in any case, it says, his chains clinked softly. I seldom fling children from towers to improve their health. Yes, I meant for him to die. And when he did not, you knew your danger was worse than ever, so you gave your cat's paw a bag of silver to make Sir Bran would never wake. Did I now? Jaime lifted his cup and took a long swallow. I won't deny we talked of it, but you were with the boy day and night. Your maesters and Lord Eddard attended him frequently, and there were guards, even those damned direwolves. It would have required cutting my way through half of Winterfell. And why bother when the boy seemed like to die of his own accord? Well, I have to point out here, this is a clue about the fact that Joffrey is the one that ordered the cat's paw. Notice that it says, we talked about doing it. Joffrey probably overheard that, I think. But in any case, that's neither here nor there. But I just noticed that as I'm reading it. So it says, if you lie to me, this session is at an end. Catelyn held out her hands to show him her fingers and palms. The man who came to slit Bran's throat gave me these scars. You swear you had no part in sending him? On my honor as a Lannister. Your honor as a Lannister is worth less than this. She kicked over the waste pail. Ooh, Catelyn, why'd you do that, dude? That's such a party foul, dude. Foul-smelling brown ooze crept across the floor of the cell, soaking into the straw. That is fucked up, man. Jaime Lannister backed away from the spill as far as his chains would allow. I may indeed have shit for honor, I won't deny it, but I've never yet hired anyone to do my killing. Believe what you will, Lady Stark, but if I had wanted your Bran dead, I would have slain him myself. Gods be merciful, he's telling the truth. If you did not send the killer, your sister did. If so, I'd know. Cersei keeps no secrets from me. That it was the imp. Tyrion is as innocent as your Bran. He wasn't climbing around outside of anyone's window spying. Then why did the assassin have his dagger? What dagger is this? It was long. It was so long, she said, holding her hands apart. Plain, but finely made, with a blade of Valyrian steel and a dragonbone hilt. Your brother won it from Lord Baelish at the tourney on Prince Joffrey's name day. Lannister poured, drank, poured, and stared into his wine cup. This wine seems to be improving as I drink it. Imagine that. I seem to remember that dagger now that you describe it. Won it, you say? How? Wagering on you when you tilted against the Knight of Flowers. Yet when she heard her own words, Catelyn knew she had gotten it wrong. No, was it the other way? Tyrion always backed me in the list, Jaime said, but that day Sir Loras unhorsed me. A missed chance. I took the boy too lightly, but no matter. Whatever my brother wagered, he lost. But that dagger did change hands, I recall it now. Robert showed it to me that night at the feast. His grace loved to salt my wounds, especially when drunk. And when he was not drunk. And when was he not drunk? Tyrion Lannister had said much the same thing as they rode through the mountains of the moon, Catelyn remembered. She had refused to believe him. Peter had sworn otherwise. Peter, who had been almost a brother. Peter, who loved her so much he fought a duel for her hand. And yet if Jaime and Tyrion told the same tale, what did that mean? The brothers had not seen each other since departing Winterfell more than a year ago. So here's Catelyn almost putting it together here with Peter Baelish's deception, but almost, not quite. Are you trying to deceive me? Somewhere there was a trap here. I've admitted to shoving your precious urchin out a window. What would it gain me to lie about this knife? He tossed down another cup of wine. Believe what you will. I'm past caring what people say of me. And it's my turn. Have Robert's brothers taken the field? They have. Now there's a niggardly response. Give me more than that, or your next answer will be as poor. Stannis marches against King's Landing, she said grudgingly. Renly is dead, murdered at Bitterbridge by his brother, though through some black art I do not understand. A pity, Jaime said. I rather liked Renly, though Stannis is quite another tale. What side have the Tyrells taken? Renly, at first. Now, I could not say. Your boy must be feeling lonely. Robb was 16 a few days past, a man grown and a king. He's won every battle he's fought. The last word we had from him, he had taken the crag from the Westerlings. He hasn't faced my father yet, has he? When he does, he'll defeat him, as he did you. He took me unawares, a craven's trick. You dare talk of tricks? Your brother Tyrion sent us cutthroats in envoy's garb under a peace banner. If it were one of your sons in this cell, wouldn't his brothers do as much the same for him? My son has no brother, she thought, but she would not share her pain with a creature such as this. Jaime drank some more wine. What's a brother's life when honor is at stake, eh? Another sip. Tyrion is clever enough to realize that your son will never consent to ransom me. Catelyn could not deny it. Robb's bannermen would sooner see you dead. Rickard Karstark in particular. You slew 2 of his sons in the Whispering Wood. The 2 with the white sunburst, were they? Jaime gave a shrug. If truth be told, it was your son that I was trying to slay. The others got in my way. I killed them in fair fight, in the heart of the battle. Any other knight would have done the same. Okay, I got to stop for some other symbolism with that one. So Jaime was trying to kill the Stark hero king, but the others got in the way while they were fighting in the Whispering Wood. So that's pretty interesting there. Definitely have to put a pin in that. And then any other knight would have done the same. And Jaime is, of course, an other knight since he's a Kingsguard. So I'll have to come back to that one next week for the Jaime Symbolism episode. Anyways, Catelyn says, how can you still count yourself a knight when you have forsaken every vow you ever swore? And now we're really getting to the heart of this scene. Jaime reached for the flagon to refill his cup. So many vows. They make you swear and swear. Defend the king, obey the king, keep the king's secrets, do his bidding, your life for his, but obey your father, love your sister, protect the innocent, defend the weak, respect the gods, obey the laws. It's too much. No matter what you do, you're forsaking one vow or the other. He took a healthy swallow of wine and closed his eyes for an instant, leaning his head back against the patch of niter on the wall. I was the youngest man ever to wear the white cloak. And the youngest to betray it. All it stood for, Kingslayer. Kingslayer, he pronounced carefully. And such a king he was. He lifted his cup. To Aerys Targaryen, second of his name, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and protector of the realm. And to the sword that opened his throat. A golden sword, don't you know? Until his blood ran red down the blade. Those are the Lannister colors, red and gold. As he laughed, she realized the wine had done its work. Jaime had drained most of the flagon, and he was drunk. Only a man like you would be proud of such an act. I told you, there are no men like me. Answer me this, Lady Stark. Did your Ned ever tell you the manner of his father's death, or his brother's? They strangled Brandon while his father watched, and then killed Lord Rickard as well. An ugly tale, and 16 years old. Why was he asking about it now? Killed, yes, but how? The cord or the axe, I suppose. Jaime took a swallow, wiped his mouth. No doubt Ned wished to spare you. His sweet young bride, if not quite a maiden. Well, you wanted truth. Ask me. We made a bargain. I can deny you nothing. Ask. Dead is dead. I do not want to hear this. Brandon was different from his brother, wasn't he? He had blood in his veins instead of cold water. More like me. Brandon was nothing like you. If you say so. You and he were to wed. He was on his way to Riverrun when... Strange how telling it still made her throat grow tight after all these years, when he heard about Lyanna and went to King's Landing instead. It was a rash thing to do. She remembered how her own father had raged when the news had been brought to Riverrun. The gallant fool was what he called Brandon. Jaime poured the last half cup of wine. He rode into the Red Keep with a few companions, shouting for Prince Rhaegar to come out and die. but Rhaegar wasn't there. Aerys sent his guards to arrest them all for plotting his son's murder. The others were Lord sons too, it seemed to me. Ethan Glover was Brandon's squire, Catelyn said. He was the only one to survive. The others were Geoffrey Mallister, Kyle Royce, and Elbert Arryn, John Arryn's nephew and heir. It was queer how she still remembered the names after so many years. Aerys accused them of treason and summoned their fathers to court to answer the charge with the sons as hostages. When they came, he had them murdered without trial, fathers and sons both. There were trials, of a sort. Lord Rickard demanded trial by combat, and the king granted the request. Stark armored himself as for battle, thinking to duel one of the Kingsguard. Me, perhaps. Instead, they took him to the throne room and suspended him from the rafters, while two of Aerys' pyromancers kindled a blaze beneath him. The king told him that fire was the champion of House Targaryen. So all Lord Rickard needed to do to prove himself innocent of treason was, well, not burn. When the fire was blazing, Brandon was brought in. His hands were chained behind his back, and around his neck was a wet leathern cord attached to a device the king had brought from Tyrosh. His legs were left free, though, and his longsword was set down just beyond his reach. The pyromancers roasted Lord Rickard slowly, banking and fanning the fire carefully to get a nice, even heat. His cloak caught first, then his surcoat, and soon he wore nothing but metal and ashes. Next he would start to cook, Aerys promised, unless his son could free him. Brandon tried, but the more he struggled, the tighter the cord constricted around his throat. In the end, he strangled himself. As for Lord Rickard, the steel of his breastplate turned cherry red before the end, and the gold melted off his spurs and dripped down into the fire. I stood at the foot of the Iron Throne in my white armor and white cloak, filling my head with thoughts of Cersei. Afterward, Gerald Hightower himself took me aside and said, "You swore a vow to guard the king, not to judge him. That was the White Bull, loyal to the end, and a better man than me. All agree." Aerys, Catelyn could taste bile at the back of her throat. The story was so hideous she suspected it had to be true. Aerys was mad, the whole realm knew it, but if you would have had me believe you slew him to avenge Brandon Stark, I made no such claim. The Starks were nothing to me. I will say, I think it passing odd that I am loved by one for a kindness I never did, and reviled by so many for my finest act. At Robert's coronation, I was made to kneel at the royal feet beside Grandmaster Pycelle and Varys the eunuch, so that he might forgive us our crimes before he took us into his service. As for your Ned, he should have kissed the hand that slew Aerys, but he preferred to scorn the arse he found sitting on Robert's throne. I think Ned Stark loved Robert better than he ever loved his brother or his father, or even you, my lady. And so here's Jaime picking up on the Robert Ned ship. Very cool. He ships it. Let's see. He was never unfaithful to Robert, was he? Jaime gave a drunken laugh. Come, Lady Stark, don't you find all this terribly amusing? I find nothing about you amusing, Kingslayer. That name again. I don't think I'll fuck you after all. Littlefinger had you first, didn't he? I never eat off another man's trencher. Besides, you're not half so lovely as my sister. His smile cut. I've never lain with any woman but Cersei. In my own way, I've been truer than your Ned ever was. Poor old dead Ned. So who has shit for honor now, I ask you? What was the name of that bastard he fathered? Catelyn took a step backward. Brienne? No, that wasn't it. Jaime Lannister upended the flagon. A trickle ran down onto his face, bright as blood. Snow. That was the one. Such a white name. Like the pretty cloaks they gave us in the Kingsguard when we swear our pretty oaths. Brienne pushed open the door and stepped inside the cell. You called, my lady? Give me your sword. Catelyn held out her hand. So, sorry guys, longer quote read, but pretty good stuff. Alisa, unmute yourself and say something.
I just laughed when Catelyn said Brienne, and Jaime was like, "No, that's not it." I don't know. That was just a funny, silly line. You were talking about symbolism, and I know you're saving that for next time, but yeah, Whispering Wood, kind of very literally Weirwood stuff. Well, not literally, but like it's right there in the words.
It's on the nose, as we like to say.
It's on the nose. Yep. And I love. I think me and the whole chat were like, when he said, Cersei would have told me she keeps no secrets from me, and we're all like, I think that's part of why he gets so pissed off when he finds out about Cersei cheating on him, because like he never thought that a possibility. That's why he like doesn't give a fuck when she's kidnapped or held hostage. And I love it shows. I know this is about Jaime, but since it's Catelyn's point of view, I love how, I don't know, she's just smart. I know a lot of people have issues with Catelyn because of the choices she makes, but her chapters are wonderful, and like her, like when the wine had did its job, he was drunk. She's just really smart to like get him drunk, and like because he's probably thirsty, will take really anything and has all of these beans to spill. And also with Bran in the tower, you mentioned Tyr and Jaime's connection there and how it has to do with Bran. I think part of one of Bran's more mythical tie-ins is like giants, and I know giants are a thing in Norse mythology, and that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I'm not even an expert on the Norse myth. I'm going to have to brush up on the whole Tyr, Jaime, Bran thing. There is a whole thing behind it. I read it like several years ago, so I only have a vague recollection of it, but it is a thing. I remember being quite sold on it when I read it, so I will do that research and come back when we talk Jaime again. Let's see here. But yeah, so that scene follows up on some of the things we were talking about earlier, as far as Jaime's honor and the whole idea of him being called the Kingslayer, what that really means to him. And, you know, he talks about how he's hated for his greatest act and reviled for something he didn't do. It just kind of gives you insight into the very conflicted sense of honor that Jaime has. He's throwing the stuff back at Cat, you know, it's like, oh, Ned cheated on you, which he didn't actually, but, he told everyone that he did. So that's what everyone thinks. And, so it's like these are two of the OG characters here who obviously their entire lives are still very much emotionally caught up in Robert's Rebellion and those events. And this is the first time these two people have really had a chance to talk candidly about it. So even though the circumstances are all messed up, you can see like they both have secrets and insight that affect the other. And particularly Jaime has this extra view of Ares that Catelyn needed to have a more complete picture of what happened. And this is also helping Catelyn figure out what's up with Peter Baelish. And wouldn't it be nice if Lady Stoneheart has some sort of chance to help bring down Peter Baelish somehow? I mean, I don't know how that happens, but I would love for Cat to be able to come back around and close that loop with Peter. It might all be with Sansa that closure happens, but
yeah, I mean that would make sense too, since Sansa is Peter's like Catelyn proxy basically. But yeah, same. I really want, if she knew all of the dominoes that Littlefinger set up and pushed, I think she would be as equally focused on that as killing random ass phrase. But okay.
Yeah, no, when so you'll notice there's that little line when Brandon heard what happened, he rushed to King's Landing. Who did he hear from? I've heard a good theory that was Littlefinger basically playing telephone and putting Brandon up to it, distorting things, blowing it out of proportion, causing this whole thing. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I always give shit to Robert saying that like it's his male ego that made him assume that Lyanna was kidnapped, and not just that she chose to go with a man who wasn't him. But it is more likely that Littlefinger was just like, hey, Rhaegar totally kidnapped the Stark girl. Don't think about it too hard. And yeah, and also in the show, Bran says that Robert's Rebellion was built on a lie, and that it would make sense if that was the lie he was talking about, even though they weren't thinking that far ahead.
Yeah, no, that is one of the key things that moved it. Like, for the most part, Robert's rebellion happened because Aerys was a bad king. When you're a bad king, rebellions come about inevitably. But of course, there's a lot of factors that all brought it together. And we went into that on the Robert stream pretty well. I feel like we attacked the War of the Five Kings pretty thoroughly. And we discussed the Littlefinger angle as well. Jinty M says, wouldn't it be cool if there's a twisted recreation, or at least a coda to this scene, went with Jaime and Stoneheart down in the cave there? There's got to be something. Obviously, Stoneheart is going to confront Jaime with, these things that have happened, the Red Wedding. So, yeah. and Brienne obviously gets pronounced guilty because she has Oathkeeper and Jaime's letter.
Yep. And, Brienne's there too. And it just doesn't look good. And the last thing Catelyn heard before she died was Jaime Lannister sends his regards. Whoops.
That's why I think what me and Quinn arrived at was that the most logical thing is that Jaime's going to have to help get Riverrun back to Stoneheart and the Tullys. That's really the only thing that would save him from being executed, essentially.
But would she even give him the chance? I want to believe that, but I assume he's gonna get out of it somehow. But I'm just how.
Well, it's not a matter of a chance of redemption. It's more like finding a way to use him. So I'm not sure exactly.
Kill him and not even think of using him. I thought she was just like, "Oh, you're here, great. I'm gonna kill you now."
No. I think when me and Quinn took a look at it, it really seems like the main thing that Stoneheart is concerned about is restoring the Starks and Tullys. It's that whole family duty honor thing. Avenging the Red Wedding. It starts with killing Freys, but it really ends with taking Riverrun back from the Freys. And similarly, if she can help, Winterfell be retaken, then that would be a similar idea. So. Anyways, I will again refer you to the Winds of Winter, Fall of the Freys, and Lady Stoneheart episodes for more on that. Let's see here.
Sorry, I'm reading these comments. They're good.
Yeah, why are we talking about Proto-Indo-European Talk Studios? You're going to distract me. I've been researching Proto-Indo-European for like a week, and I'm totally... So on Sunday, guys, we're going to do a A Song of Ice and Fire live stream. I have just spent like a week binging on research for my book. So we're going to talk about creation myths, the Chaos Kampf, Ocean of Chaos Dragon creation myth that we find all over the place, and some other world mythology topics that I have. That I basically have all the stuff in my brain right now, and I want to get some of it out because it's very interesting. So
wow, A Song of Ice and Fire, very exciting.
Yeah, I did. Of course, the Eve Did Nothing Wrong video, and then the Why Men Make Gods live stream. So this will be, I'll think of a catchy name, but I think I'm going to center it around the primordial chaos mother ocean myths, because that is such a foundational myth that we find everywhere. So Talk Studios, you will like that one.
And you got a super chat from 2002.
Ooh, look at that. So I do. Do you think that the faces on the Weirwoods are the faces of the victims who have been sacrificed? Have you done a stream talking about Bran's vision? Let me see. I talked about Bran's. I haven't gone through his dream and just like picked out everything for the sake of doing it that way. In the Bloodstone Compendium, I took a look at some of the shadows in his dream, and I've talked about the astral projection elements of his dream all over the King Bran series and the Weirwood Compendium. And I've said a few times that those impaled dreamers on the ice spires below him as he falls are some clue about others being connected to green seers and green men. I'm going to follow up on that idea in a future video. So here and there, not in one specific place, but just if you watch all my videos, 120 hours later, you'll have the answer. So no, I'm kidding. So the faces on the Weirwoods, I do think they are the faces of, the people inside them or the people that have been sacrificed, something like that. We're supposed to understand them that way. But it's more like a symbol of the tree being tortured and like being whited out. Like it makes the tree look like a dead person. So the tree essentially looks like a corpse tree, a corpse person tree. And that's how we're supposed to essentially see them. But
I just remembered during your reading, Catelyn said that her throat like got tighter when Jaime was telling her about like the deaths of Brandon and Rickard Stark. I was just like, OMG, Lady Stoneheart, because like she dies by getting her throat slit in her. But also, I like the idea that Brandon was like choking himself, like strangling himself, trying to like reach his father, and that's how Catelyn or Lady Stoneheart kills people, is by hanging them and strangling them. And I've never been a fan of the idea that Robb is Brandon's bastard, but I do like these little tie-ins between Brandon and Catelyn that like show that they did have a kind of relationship before her and Ned. Just good world building that makes the characters more real.
Yeah, she jumps to Brandon's defense, but Brandon and Jaime probably are a lot alike, actually.
And she takes that as an insult, but we know who Jaime. Oh no, we have a good idea of who Jaime really is. Jaime's not really a bad guy, so like that's not really an insult, but she wouldn't know that because all she can see of Jaime is the bad, but really it's probably a compliment.
So I posted on Patreon this morning. I'm going to try to be a little better about soliciting you lovely patrons for questions ahead of time when I do these character streams, so you have a chance to get your comments in. But I gave you guys a few hours this morning and got some responses. So let me take a look at those. There's a lot of real world twin symbolism. Do Jaime and Cersei feed into any of it? Let's see. Gosh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of twin mythology is not something I have in my head to give a quick answer for, Dan. So I will probably have to do some. That's an obvious question to ask. I'm almost embarrassed I don't have an answer, but I'll have to look into that. Guys in the chat, can anyone think of twin related mythology that could relate to Jaime and Cersei?
I mean, Artemis and Apollo, they're supposed to be twins.
I wonder if Cersei has, so Cersei could have more covert Artemis parallels, even though it's not an obvious thing. I'd have to look to see. Sometimes George does that in a sneaky fashion, but I don't see them off the top of my head, really.
No, I don't.
She's not virginal. She's not a huntress.
Virginal, she's not a huntress. No, she's not like a powerful huntress.
She's a lioness, like kind of, but
she's not a defender of women. She's an attacker of women.
Yeah, I don't really see that. So I'd have to look into that and see if we can find something.
Carl Karsnark, you know.
Oh, Cain and Abel. There is a Cain and Abel parallel. Something about the way that Jaime is grasping. Oh no, it's not Cain and Abel. It's Jacob and Esau. That's what it is. It is something about the birth order with Jacob and Esau. Jacob is the younger one who tries to usurp the inheritance, and there's something about grasping the heel or whatever. And so supposedly Jaime was grabbing Cersei's heel when they were born, which is a reference to that. And I saw a write-up on that made a lot of sense, but that's all I can say off the top of my head. Where are you going?
Is this Bible stuff?
Is this Bible stuff? She says it is, but it's over now.
I was like, I have no insights on Bible. My skin, it burns.
Very good. Jaime losing his hand obviously starts his. This is from Jinty M, who's in the chat. Starts his redemptive arc, but how about the gold replacement? Is it merely symbolic of the weight his family places on him, represented as a gold cast hand that is heavy and functional useless? Ooh, I like that. That makes a lot of sense, Jinty. I'm going to go ahead and agree with your smartness there. Is it meant to tie him to Victarion with his discolored but improved hand as mirrors echoes of each other? Well, all the hand symbolism, John has burned hand. It is all getting at George's use of hand symbolism, which goes back to Azor Ahai and the red bloody hands of the Weirwoods. So that's a rabbit hole that I don't want to go down right now. In the Bloodstone Compendium, I talked about the fist and hand symbolism, hand of the king, and all that stuff. So I don't see a direct parallel to Tyrion. It's more of they're both hinting at the same archetype thing. Does it fit in with the green hand, gray hand monomus symbolism in some way? Basically, there are multiple ways to read it, but I wondered which direction you think Jaime's symbolism points to in regards with the golden hand. So the first thing you suggested is definitely right. And that's more of a, like, not a symbolic illusion, but just a thematic depiction of Jaime's internal themes. So that works. Now, the green hand thing, that is closer to the mark, I think, because George is showing us the Summer King, Garth, with green hands, and then the Winter King tree is very clearly the Weirwood, and it has red bloody hands, which is a Holly King color. So there is a red-green winter-summer hand, cycle of nature symbolism thing. So Jaime losing his hand could tie into that. I have to think a little harder about how. But losing your hand would be akin to losing your fertility and becoming a Winter King. Jaime is on that path. His hair's going silver and gray. He's wearing the winter raiment of the King's Guard. He's identifying himself more as Lord Commander than Lannister. So those shifts are all happening. And the hand probably complements that. Go ahead, Alisa.
I do have a thought about Jaime's hand, and maybe...
Go for it. I'm going to take 30 seconds and tell my bird that everything's okay. So go ahead.
Say hi to your bird. So Jaime's hand is golden, and there's a famous myth or story, King Midas, the king who loved gold so much that he wished for everything he touched to turn to gold. And at first it's great, but then blah, blah, blah consequences. He hugs his daughter and turns her to gold, and then he's sad. So I like the thought that, Jaime is Tywin's golden child. He's everything he wants his child to be, except he refuses to be the Lord of Casterly Rock. He refuses to take up the mantle of the line of Lannister. And I like the idea Jaime's hand gets cut off because Jaime is talking shit to the bloody mummers and is like, oh, my father this, my father that. And they cut off his hand to teach him a lesson, and Jaime would have learned that from his father. So I like to think that, kind of like Midas accidentally hugging his child and turning them to gold, Tywin's dickery and teaching his kids that gold is all you need, really, is what got Jaime's hand cut off and then turned into gold. Not literally, but now he has a golden hand in place of it. So that's just my thought. It's kind of like a punishment on Tywin as well as Jaime.
And that makes sense. Absolutely. The sword hand is symbolic of so much. So losing the sword hand, exactly. It ties into all those ideas. And the only L says Jacob grabbed Esau's heel at birth. Jaime and Cersei's tie is now broken because Jaime's hand is off. So when Jaime says the hand that pushed Bran out the window, the hand that blah, 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 it's the hand that grabbed Cersei's heel as well. So good. That's a nice one. Super chat from Parker T says, have you noticed the connections between the last Targ dragons in captivity and Tyrion's character growth when he's in captivity versus not? I have not noticed that. And I'm trying to think about the idea of comparing Tyrion to a dragon that's in captivity that doesn't have room to grow. It's an interesting idea. He's definitely compared to dragons, and the idea is a little man who casts a large shadow, so that he's actually bigger than he looks, or something like that. But I'm not sure. Do you have thoughts?
I thought Varys was talking about Littlefinger when he said that. Never mind.
No, that line gets used a bunch of times. Honestly, it's Jon has it at the wall with Mel, but Tyrion gets it mostly a couple times. But yeah, no, there is that. I'm thinking of the vision that it's okay. The Mokoro has of Tyrion, where it's like there's dragons all around him, bright and dark and stuff. So he is a symbolic dragon person, or a dragon tamer, or a dragon rider, or a dragon helper, or something like that. Maybe.
He was born.
I'll tell you what. I will check out your comment on YouTube and give a longer reply. It sounds like he says he made more comments. Parker did on YouTube, so I will check those out and respond. I think I actually did see that come through. Let's see here.
Girl Nettles, yeah, Tyrion does shine in captivity, which is kind of the opposite of the dragons. The dragons suffer under captivity, so it's kind of the opposite, really.
Yeah, that does seem right. He doesn't seem to throw him, and he always turns things around. Like when he's a slave, when he's with Jorah, he manipulates the circumstances to his advantage. So. Talk Studio says occasionally twins represent opposing forces of good and evil. Huron people of northeastern North America tell of the Iosheka and Tawiskara, twins who dueled to rule the world. And of course, there's the hero twins of Mayan myth too, but I don't know the story well enough to know if it overlaps. I think we're probably closer to the mark looking at the fairy tale parallels as well as the Norse parallels with Jaime. And then it's also got a lot of Azor Ahai stuff going on too. And to tease with that, let's think about something here, okay? Let me just riff for a second. And here's the Talk Studios YouTube link. Thank you, Carl Karsney, for dropping that in. So the Kings of Winter sit on stone thrones in the crypts, and they have a long sword across their lap. And the thing is that because they were iron long swords, which were originally black, they've now rusted away, which means they left red stains, or some of the ones that are in between will be rust red swords in the hands of the Kings of Winter. So here's Jaime sitting on the throne after he's just murdered Aerys. He's doing a Kings of Winter impression for Ned. He's sitting on the throne with the sword across his lap, just like a King of Winter, and it's red with Aerys' blood, just like the swords in the crypts are red. And of course, red swords, that's really Azor Ahai and Lightbringer talk. So is Azor Ahai a King of Winter? Is that what's going on? Well, kind of, because the first Stark King of Winter was probably the last hero, or something like that. There's probably some kind of overlap there. The last hero was probably a King of Winter. If you look at the Night's King myth, he was cast down by Brandon the Breaker Stark, who was a King of Winter. So there's a natural King of Winter versus the Night King or Leader of the Others theme that runs all through Song of Ice and Fire. We find many parallels. So I just think it's interesting that Jaime is doing this King of Winter pose after he's done what? He's just killed Aerys, who is a Night King figure. Absolutely. So this is Jaime as a former other, because remember, Kingsguard symbolism means other. He's like a good other. He's turned against his master, the Night King, and killed him, and now he looks like the King of Winter. So pretty cool stuff, right?
Yeah. It made me think of Jon Snow. It also made me think of the theory where all the former Kings of Winter in the crypts there's a theory that they're gonna come to life to fight the others, or that they're there to guard Winterfell or the land from the others. And I like the idea that if their purpose is to protect people, then Jaime, by doing that little pose that the Kings of Winter do, also is a result of him protecting people. I like that a lot. And
maybe that's why Ned was so pissed off, right? He's like, hey, that's my sacred pose.
How dare you?
All right, so let's see. Marigold says, not a question, but a comment. I wonder how differently Jaime would be perceived had he shown great remorse after killing Aerys. What if he hadn't sat smugly on the throne and had shown some respect for the thing he'd done? Because some people argue that if Jaime wanted to kill Aerys, he should have then killed himself out of honor, or turned himself in or something like that, humbled himself, abased himself. He didn't do that because that's not his character. And it definitely probably would have changed at least some of the perception about him. But he would be trading some of that sympathy for the sort of, because he doesn't do that, he almost is like godlike. He's like above the law, unrepentant, unbowed by the laws of men, kind of like Euron. We see that with evil anti-heroes sometimes. They intentionally put themselves outside the laws of men to make themselves seem more powerful. So that is the mythos that he gained with Kingslayer. So that would have been different.
Also, it says he was sitting smugly on the throne, and that's the image everyone has of him. But like, also, Ned is a really bad judge of character. Ned doesn't think very critically, and he kind of like makes assumptions about people. So for all we know, he wasn't smiling smugly or anything like that. That's just like what Ned took it as. Also, he had no reason to feel bad about what he did. Yeah, he like broke an oath, but like it was the right thing. Anyone in his place would have done the exact, well, not anyone, because there were King's guards who like didn't do shit, but like most.
No, it's arguably the single most heroic act that we hear about anywhere in A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah,
straight up, he saved thousands of people's lives. There was no gray area. It was unquestionably the right thing to do. The only debate is how we should have handled it afterwards. So
yeah, but like I wouldn't have felt bad. I wouldn't have shown remorse for it either. I would have been like, yeah, no, fuck that guy. You guys should be thanking me, or like not that, or if not that, then like,
yeah, no question, no question. It's interesting writing choice to make Jaime not really ever defend himself from that. We talked about it earlier. So let's see here. Do you see, it's from Ghoul City? Or no, actually, go back. Yeah, Ghoul City. Do you see Jaime becoming like Ned, or that he sees Ned as a role model? Maybe he just won't admit it. Maybe we will see a dream from Jaime that involves Ned. Maybe he regrets what he did now instead of the streets of King's Landing. I don't think so. I think he thinks Ned represents part of the false honor of Westeros. And I don't think he respects him at all, actually. That's my take on it.
OMG, we disagree on something.
I think it burns Jaime in the sense that like some part of him acknowledges the honor that Ned has, but I don't think he respects it. I think it burns his conscience a little bit, maybe.
I think that, but I think part of the reason it bothers him so much is because he respects Ned and he does admire him a little bit.
I'd use the word respect, but not admire, but I see where you're going with that.
Respect.
I guess it's semantics. Yeah, no, okay, that's valid. That's true.
Eric Brock, what is my hot take? I said a lot of things. Which one is my hot take?
Yeah, be specific. Egorius Pitch Puckington, blood magic worship is the most prevalent, most powerful magic. Why do you think that is? Jaime made a blood sacrifice. Okay, so that's too much of a topic to get off on. It just simply is. Blood is like, the magic all comes from the natural elements in A Song of Ice and Fire, and I think George is using human blood as a natural element in that it's the conveyor of life force, chi, energy, or whatever it is. So when you sacrifice someone and use their blood, you're taking their whole life force and using it to power magic. I think that's pretty clear. Jaime did, of course, make a kind of blood sacrifice. What are we talking about here? There's no blood involved in the Weirwood Stump Dream scene.
No.
He killed Ares on the Iron Throne. Is that what he's talking about? Or killed the king? But
I think that is. But I mean, is his stump bleeding at all? Is there blood on him when he has the Weirwood Dream?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't think so.
I just picture him like, being really dirty and like blood being part of the reason he's dirty.
Could be.
But I think he's more talking about the Iron Throne thing. But there's no weird
Probably
there, so
he threw Bran out of the tower too. That's also a symbolic, like sacrificing the Corn King thing.
But he didn't die. There was no blood though.
Okay, so I've got more of these. I've got several Patreon questions that I need to get through before we call this. We're almost at 2 hours already, so I'm trying to pick up the pace here a little bit. Oh no, I didn't have to mean it that way. Where do you see Jaime's character going in the next books? Helen O'Grady asks. Is he on a redemption arc? Will he join Brienne Stoneheart? Will he go off on his own? Will he die? What does the symbolism and foreshadowing tell us? Well, most of that is going to be in the Stoneheart episode, like I said. We've already touched on some of that, what I think is going to aid in the fall of River Run. I do think Jaime will eventually fight against the others, join the Watch, or the armies of the living or something like that. I think that will happen, and I think that will be hella cool. So I see him going north eventually, kind of like he did on the show. I think that makes sense. So what do you think? You think that's going to happen?
Sorry, I was looking. Someone said they were thinking of reposting their question because I guess they asked a question that didn't get answered, so I was just looking for it.
Well, either do or don't.
Can you sum up what was the thing?
Oh no, I was just I was asking if you think Jaime will end up joining the Watch and fighting the others in the north.
Nope. He's gonna die. Either he's gonna die south of the wall somehow, probably because of something Cersei does. Or
I agree with that, but I just was thinking maybe he'll get to the north first, but you don't. So there you go. There's another disagreement for you guys.
Or I don't think he'll go north of the wall. I can see him fighting at Winterfell, though.
Yeah, maybe at Winterfell. I just think when he hears about the others, I think he's gonna throw himself to that cause somehow. But that's more of a hunch. It's not a foreshadowing thing or anything I'm certain of. So
he's got to get past Lady Stoneheart first.
Let's see. So Kara asked about parallels between him and other characters from real life history or Song of Ice and Fire history, myth, or legend. It's mainly Azor Ahai that I'm seeing with him. He's I have not found any other ones. He does. So Tyrion is the obviously and the clever parallel. Jaime is also pretty clever at times, but I think that primarily Jaime is, if he's telling us about any of Song of Ice and Fire archetypes, it's Azor Ahai / what I'm calling the good other, which is basically the other child who's rescued from the others, and he becomes a Stark or the last hero and fights against the others. Sandor Clegane is showing us that character. Jon Snow is showing us that character. I think Brienne is too, actually. And so is Jaime. So that is one of those parallels. We're going to get into that more, though, in the next Jaime podcast. Let's see, a couple of less.
The morning. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a good one. Yeah. No, he's definitely compares himself to Arthur Dayne and the Smiling Knight as a sort of dichotomy of two ways that knights can go. So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. He's more recent, but he is a historical character, so that counts. Keaton asks, so we know that Jaime is increasingly becoming fed up with Cersei's BS. Do you think we'll see him being the Valonqar and the one to kill her? Yes, I tend to think that we shouldn't overthink that. I think it will be Jaime. And you probably agree with that, right?
Yeah, if it's not.
Yeah, it would. Okay, we're on the same page. So, and what could she do, in your opinion, to truly force him to do it? Something like what we saw on the show, blowing up the Sept of Baelor, exactly, or something more sinister, like killing one of their children in some sort of rage. I don't think that'll happen. Cersei is so obsessed with protecting her children. Can't wait for this. Okay, yeah, so it's definitely going to be Cersei killing a bunch of people, and I think a Sept of Baelor-like event is coming at some point, probably when Fagon attacks the city. Correct? Yeah?
Yeah, agreed. Also, side note, you mentioned Fagon, so I gotta say this. Malachi finished the books. That's my boyfriend. He finished the books. When he started Dance, he thought Fagon was Trugon. And then we finished it, and then I showed him House of the Undying again. And he was like, okay, yeah, I know, you're probably right. He's probably fake. That does make sense. So also
and yes, if you sent in a PayPal question, I am going to answer those before we go off. I'm doing the patrons first, and then I'm going right over to that. So I had so much fun talking with Alisa. I think my mind blanked a little bit on answering some of these. So we are gonna do them though. Here, let's see.
I'm sorry. Much.
I might have to pull the birds out. They're getting restive. Let's see. John Ice Eyes, in Jaime's Weirwood dream, his and Brienne's swords glow with pale fire. That implies Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper have pale fire capabilities. Could be, or it could just be that this is the dream version of those swords. Which means that Ice did, I don't know about that, but Ice was Valyrian steel, and Jaimian swords, Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper have the waves of blood and night symbolism. Does this imply that Ned's Ice was tied to Lightbringer? Or if Dawn was the original Ice, that it is Lightbringer? What's going on? So, okay, I think that essentially mostly Ned's Valyrian steel Ice is standing in for Dawn, which was the original Ice. So that's why we see Widow's Wail and also Jon's Longclaw run with Morning Light, even though they're Valyrian steel, because the Starks and Jon as the Stark last hero are supposed to ultimately wield Dawn. And so that is why I think we see the blue and silver fire in the dream, even though those swords are Valyrian steel. It's because they are standing in for ice and dawn. Exactly right.
And
you got it.
And they kill others, probably.
Probably so, yes, because they're going against the dream others there in that dream. Exactly. Will Stewart ask, will Jaime's golden hand become magically functional?
No.
Well, that would be cool. Probably not. Probably not. A golden hand just sounds like such a great Age of Heroes style legend. On a more down-to-earth note, I support Jaime and Brienne as a platonic relationship of true respect, equality, and friendship, rare and highly valued by both of them. The sex in the show ruined that. Look at your reaction.
Okay, so yes, there's respect, and it starts out platonic. It's definitely romantic, though. They're so in love that it hurts. In the show, I think the only thing that ruined them having sex was him immediately piecing out to go save Cersei. If that didn't happen, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that relationship finally being able to express itself in this years-long built-up tension just finally releasing. I loved it so much. I cried. Jaime leaving was the only thing that pissed me off. So sorry, I gotta disagree. Hard disagree.
I do think is like a good symbolic idea that could get attached to Jaime in the end. That would be cool. And the gold hand is an interesting play. I talked about the green hand and the red hand of the Weirwood tree. The golden hand could be like a synthesis or a post-resurrection kind of a symbol, because that's what Jaime's moving to, is like a last hero, Azor Ahai, who's been through ice and fire and been spit back out again or something like that. So the gold could be a synthesis of those. But gold is also used, equated with cold a lot. And that's the thing about the gold symbolism. It's basically frozen fire. Actually, I remember that I figured this out a while ago. So the idea of frozen fire is literally the idea of fire that is frozen and made hard and cold, right? That's what the metal gold is. Everyone likened it to the sun's hot golden fire, but the metal itself is cold. So it makes a natural companion for George's various frozen fire symbols. So that's essentially, it's almost like him having an obsidian hand, if you think about it that way. It's an ice and fire unity symbol. It's a frozen fire symbol. And a lot of Jaime's symbolism is going in that direction. And I'm talking symbolism now. Okay, so feel free to pipe in anywhere you want to, by the way.
Okay. Yes, Brienne does deserve better, but you can't control who you love. And new Jaime, redeemed Jaime, I think is good enough for her. But few people are, so.
Yeah, I think they'll probably have like one moment of sweetness, and then Jaime's tragedy will have to run complete. But we'll see.
I just want.
I know you want a happy ending. We'll see. So Jaime is a Knight of the Kingsguard, a symbolic stand-in for the other. You know what? I'm going to save the ones that are symbolism for next week. I think that would actually make more sense, because it's sending me into Azor Ahai talk, and that's not what I want to do today. So, Jason, I will save your comment. Hypatia Ravenclaw. Jaime is most connected to the color of gold. I think even more than white, even though he's a Kingsguard. Of course, he's a Lannister, but still more than any other Lannister, at least as much as I noticed. Thoughts on that through the symbolism prism? Okay, so that'll be a next week one. The point is to present him as a golden god. There's probably intentional Apollo symbolism, like we were talking about. And the other thing about that is that the Kingsguard is just a temporary thing. He is first and foremost an Azor Ahai, solar, burning lion, fiery figure. He goes through the Kingsguard to show you the process of freezing. That's like Azor Ahai becoming a Night's King, or getting trapped in the Weirwood net, or fathering the others, and stuff like that. So that's what that's about. Let's see. And then Hypatia was also asking why Jaime didn't ever tell Eddard what actually happened. We already addressed that one. So thank you for that question. Why did no one ever talk about the wildfire caches? Okay, it's the same question. Could have worked to fix Jaime's reputation because it just makes the story more interesting, I think, to have him choose not to. But again, we did go into that earlier. So thank you for that one, Baxter. Obviously, a question on everyone's mind regarding Jaime. Like I said, it's one of the first ones that vexed me. Once you find out what he did, like, why didn't he defend himself? And slowly over the course of time, it sort of sank in.
I mean, Brienne asked that too, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the obvious, exactly. It's the obvious thing to ask. So now flipping over to my email inbox for all the kind folks who have sent me PayPals today. Teespring sent me money because people have been buying my t-shirts. Thank you, people who've been buying my t-shirts. Ludmila says, no question, just thank you. So thank you, Ludmila. Parker says, thanks for your hard work. Any link connection between Jaime's stump and Davos's finger stumps? Feels like it's a symbolic dichotomy, but haven't dove deep into it. Yeah, so like I said, all the chopped hands are basically kind of like exploding meteor symbols. If you think of the moon and the sun, there's like a hand, it's like a hand symbol or like a fist. And the meteors, when they fall, are like fists as well. So anytime the fingers are flying, the blood is flicking off the fingers, things like that. That's like a celestial god finger flicking meteors at you, or punching you with a meteor fist, something like that. So that's what all the hands are doing. Also, it's a Weirwood symbol. Obviously, it's part of the Weirwood stigmata. Any sort of bloody hand can potentially be used to show someone assimilating with the Weirwood tree, which has the bloody hand leaves. Because it's a zombie tree.
Sersha Mears says, I hope Tyrion gets a gold tongue to match Jaime's hand. That's a theory, but I think Tyrion has suffered enough.
Don't take Tyrion's tongue. I hate that idea. He's nothing without his tongue. That's the whole thing.
Like the point of Jaime losing his hand is learning that he is more than just his hand, but Tyrion really is his tongue. That is his whole thing. You can't take that away from him. He'll have nothing.
Yeah, he'd just be writing notes all the time.
Yeah. He has a whiteboard.
I guess maybe it could work if he ends up like Bran's hand in some sort of sensible way and he's just governing and legislating or something. But he's always, I don't know, Tyrion's wit is everything. It's like one of the highlights of the whole series.
Jaime losing his hand is a punishment and it's needed to humble him. Tyrion has been humbled plenty, very, very much enough over the story. He doesn't need that punishment. Yeah,
his problem is more like dealing with trauma in a healthy way. Something more like that. So Bobby Sperry sent me a very generous PayPal. Thank you, Bobby. No question, but just a thank you for my hard work. So thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. Long time mythical astronomer, Bobby Sperry. She remembers the Bloodstone Compendium from when it came out the first time. So, all right. So I did have a couple other quotes I wanted to read, but we're out of time. I've answered all the questions here. And we are going to talk about, like I said, we're going to come back to Jaime probably next Sunday, not 2 days from now, but the week after. We'll do some symbolism, but we'll still go back in for some stuff about his character. I really wanted to read the scene where he is returning to the Lord Commander's chambers. There is a lot of good symbolism there, so we can go through that. But mainly it's the way that he deals with Loras and Brienne. I guess let's talk about it without reading the quotes. Hopefully you guys remember. So he comes back to King's Landing. Loras wants to kill Brienne. He wants to challenge Brienne to a duel. Jaime kind of slaps him around and says, hey, I'm Lord Commander, by the way, and I'm telling you not to. But he does imprison Brienne and considers her charged with a crime. And he essentially asks Loras to go and talk to her and do some investigating and think about it a little harder. And what he ends up doing is getting Loras to see the truth that Brienne didn't kill Renly. And so the way that Jaime handles that situation is pretty skillful. And of course, he also realizes that Loras is the spitting image of young Jaime, all confidence and skill. So that's a fun one. But comments.
I love the parallels between Jaime and Loras. I don't know. I just think it's really sweet. And Jaime sees this young knight and he thinks he doesn't want him to kill anybody and then regret it and then have his reputation ruined. But he already did kill one of his friends out of rage, basically. And I think Jaime recognizes that and wants to save him from ruining his own reputation as a knight. And I think it's really sweet that Jaime put in that effort to save Brienne when he didn't have to. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean it's that's another one. Like all of Jaime's chapters, we could read them. Like the chapter where he turns around and goes back to Harrenhal, and he has the Weirwood Stump dream, and then that triggers a change of character. He literally starts back. For those of you who know the We Should Start Back symbolism, he goes back and retraces his steps, which is an important symbolic thing. Goes back to Harrenhal. One of my favorite scenes. I forget where it comes, but at one point, one of the other soldiers is slandering Brienne, and Jaime straight up just hits him as hard as he can with his golden hand and be like, she's a lady and her name is Brienne, and you'll put some respect on her name. And that's like, everyone's all like a knight in shining armor. So that's a pretty good scene.
We all cry together because he loves her so much. No one.
He jumped into the bear pit unarmed and takes he's got like she had a wooden sword. He's throwing sand at the bear. Like, it's pretty heroic stuff, and it's very romantic and charming.
You were already ways away. Why did you come back? I dreamed of you.
I dreamed of you. Yeah, that's pretty romantic stuff. That is not platonic.
Yeah, that is not platonic. If that's how you feel about your friends, I got news for you.
Oh, that was Red Ronnet. Yeah, he got straight dropped. It's true. Red Ronnet's a punk anyway, so he deserved that one. Wasn't Red Ronnet one of the ones that playing tricks on Brienne as far as when they were having a contest to like kiss her or something?
I think he was.
I think he was one of those dickhead knights, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's so fuzzy, but yeah, that makes it super meaningful when he slaps him because he was a dick to Brienne their whole lives, and it's like a double punishment.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, as I'm remembering, it definitely was one of the ones. So that was a sweet Jaime moment.
Also, red and Jaime's gold. Anyways, red and gold. More.
He does love his color symbolism.
Yep.
And then let's see what were some other great Jaime scenes. He defies his father. That's definitely an interesting scene to see him stand up to the great Tywin Lannister and basically tell his father, be like, yeah, your Lannister pride doesn't fucking mean shit to me the way it means something to you. That is some cold water on Tywin's head, which is pretty sweet, for the reader. I mean, talk about someone that we hate, right? Tywin. So the guy's got no redeeming characters, man, except for he's not even as competent as he's made out to be.
Tywin?
Yeah.
He's not?
He's not. He loses a bunch of battles, and he sows the seeds of the destruction of his house by being a bad parent and ignoring his children and not understanding them.
You're right. He's also a hypocrite, telling his children that they need to get married and have kids and have the Lannister line go on, but he didn't get remarried after Joanna died. So come on, Tywin.
All his gaslighting of Tyrion about sleeping with whores and stuff, and then they find him in bed with Shay.
And he had that. Never mind. He allegedly had a secret passage made going into the Tower of the Hand. I'm pretty sure.
I like that
because that's the only thing. I'm dying. Sorry.
No, it is a good theory. I forget the details of it, but there is some evidence pointing to Tywin being the one to create that secret passage to Shatias. So yeah, he's a big fat fucking hypocrite. Dude, if I ever do a Tywin character stream, it's going to be brutal. I have to demonetize it, be dropping F-bombs the whole time. I hate Tywin's ass, man. I hate everything that he represents. And that is how George, I think meant to write him. So that's a brutal one.
Hyped in the fandom. It's a hot take, but when you actually look at his actions and basically everything that he's pissed off about is his own fault. So you know what? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an unmistakable message about parenting and the sins of the father and the cycles of abuse. And I mean, all of that Lannister narcissism we see in Jaime and Cersei goes back to Tywin. So, yep. So where does that leave us with Jaime? You know, he's a character, breathtaking arrogance, obviously.
Breathtaking looks.
Breathtaking looks. But he's becoming more interesting as the story goes on. One of the things that is interesting about Jaime is that he's actually every bit as funny and witty as Tyrion is, if you pay attention to it. He just doesn't make as much out of it. But Jaime is hilarious constantly. The scene with the Lord Blackwood, when he walks in on Blackwood with the camp follower and they're all bent. I mean, that's just hilarious.
He is very funny. I can't say that he's just as witty. I mean, I guess witty in the sense that he can say good comeback really fast, but
it feels like the same voice when George is writing their dialogue. It feels like the same sense of humor, I think is what I'm trying to say. But yeah,
I think there's a difference in like their cleverness or intelligence though, because Jaime is like a little too snarky, like him being snarky and like not like registering that like and saying that the bloody mummers, oh I'm sorry, brave companions are dishonorable and making fun. If he maybe registered that they didn't like that, him talking shit like that, maybe.
His arrogance is a stumbling block with his effectiveness sometimes. Yes, that is correct.
Whereas Tyrion would have been like, ooh, they don't like it when I mentioned that, I'm just gonna stray from that topic.
You know, I mean clever in the like snark sense. I mean, like he's got the good one-liners. He's very perceptive, so he's constantly breaking people down and throwing shit at them that sticks, you know. So that's one of the things I like about reading. Go ahead.
Car snarky or not too snarky.
Mr. Karsnack. So yeah, and then of course another good Jaime scene with the scene with Tully, with Edmure Tully, where he's browbeating him and then threatens to, you know, send his son to him via trebuchet, and he's like, "Is that what Tywin would have done?" So that's kind of an interesting scene because it's Tyrion or it's Jaime trying to be like Tywin, kind of, and he's like, "Is this how you do it? I don't know."
He's also just playing the part. I don't believe for a second that he actually would have sent the baby up there. Because isn't it immediately after that like Brienne comes back, or immediately after that gets a letter?
Yeah, it's soon after. Yes.
Yeah.
I think he would have done it, but I don't think he wanted to do it. I would put it that way.
I think he would have had someone else do it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
He wouldn't have done
Look,
it.
he's like, I'll kill my own enemies, but flinging babies, that I will delegate.
That's a little too dark. And I love when he gets the letter from Cersei, and the Maester tells him what's in it, and he doesn't care. He's, nope, I'm done with you. You suck. And Moon Boy, for all I know, get out of here. I'm done with you. I would rather continue to siege River Run.
So that's another interesting moment, is that Jaime and Tyrion in the cells scene where Tyrion lies to Jaime and says, "Yes, I killed your vile son," just to like fuck with Jaime. And that was an amazing scene to read, first of all. And it seems like it's not even done having ramifications too.
Oh no.
Because he put that whole narrative into his head to make him distrust Cersei, which is mostly right, but still based on lies. And so Jaime doesn't know up from down anymore.
How is it based on lies? Isn't
well? Everyone? No, I guess that's true. Lancel and Kettleblacks, that's both true, I guess. But by throwing in Moon Boy, it implies that like, and who knows who else. And so now he's like kind of, you know.
Well, like some handmaidens, or I'm sorry, there was a woman. And it got
there's two. Taina Merryweather and one of her handmaids. Yeah. Or was it just Taina?
I don't remember.
Maybe it was just Taina Merryweather. You're right.
I just remember that I hated that scene and needed to go shower after reading it. It was so gross. Not because gayness is gross. Gay is great. just because.
I guess the lie was mostly that he killed Joffrey.
Yeah,
But
that's the lie.
the point is, he's using the truth and lies. He's weaponized them all to just to screw with Jaime, basically, as a kind of revenge.
And he's getting back at him for something that that was also false information. He's like getting revenge for false information with more false information.
Yeah, with the whole Taisha layers of lies and deception. And think about how messed up Tywin was to involve Jaime in that stunt. It's like, it's obviously messed up what he did to Taisha, obviously messed up what he did to Tyrion, but involving Jaime in that stunt, that was also another layer of psychological abuse that Tywin was dishing out.
And yeah, and Jaime didn't enjoy that. Like, he's probably been mad at Tywin. There's so many things for them to be mad at Tywin for. Yeah, I think I agree with you. I'm excited if you ever do a Tywin stream so that you can just go off.
It's going to be 30 minutes long, and I'm just going to be like, end stream. In any case, all right. Well, I think we pretty much come to the conclusion here of what we're gonna do today. So, thank you very much, Alisa Patience. Once again, you can find Alisa on YouTube simply by typing in Alisa Patience.
It's Lisa
come right up
with an A and then Patience like the virtue. Yeah, thank
there you go.
you for inviting me and letting me talk a lot and hearing me, and it was fun. And I look forward to next time. And thanks everyone in the comments. You guys always make me feel a lot smarter than I probably am.
Yay! Yeah, well, they are a beautiful and supportive bunch. That is definitely true. And thank you guys for making the work for my mods so easy. My mods are able to sit around and make snarky jokes and post links because they don't have to discipline any bad behavior. Thank you all. You're all beautiful and lovely. And like I said, I'll be back this Sunday at the normal time of 4:20 Eastern to talk about real world mythology things, primordial chaos oceans and stuff like that.
And
because
I might be in the chat that week because I usually work on Sundays, but they cut my hours. So
cool. Well, there will be a little bit of Bible stuff, but there'll also be stuff about like the Enuma Elish, which is the creation epic of Sumerian myth. So we're going to go some strange places.
That's chill. Your Bible stuff is more educational, if nothing else.
Cool. Well, it's really about mythology and symbols, of course. That's the real topic. So thank you guys. And then, like I said, in 9 days, a week from this Sunday, we'll do probably the other Jaime stream with the symbolism, Jaime, because there's lots to talk about there too. So thanks, guys. Hope you enjoy it. And I will see you next time.
Have a good night. Happy weekend.